So David Sheppard, who's about to join us, he was on Infinity Sports Network for a long time. Obviously, you know the network has gone down, unfortunately, and replaced. Currently a host on Sirius XM NBA Radio, which I've had the chance to listen to a lot. He's very good at it. And we're going to talk about this topic and the merger and all that stuff. But let's bring in David now. David, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. And I appreciate the kind words.
So I guess we'll start with this. When you found out the news about ISN, what was kind of the general first reaction when you heard that ISN was going away?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I was taken back. I'm still. It's been almost 2 weeks. I'm still processing this. I felt like this was us at the 11th hour, and we've been on for 13 years, and we had made a mark in this industry, and we resonated with a lot of people. And I just felt like, okay, this is someone's going to swoop in and save the ship. Didn't happen, but I was hopeful at the time because I believe so much in what we have done, what we stand for, the kind of radio we do, and I was hoping that someone would swoop in and save us at the 11th hour.
Yeah, David, we here at ETB used to work with a gambling partner for the latter part of a couple of months when we were on a different platform that we were able to watch games and react with fans live on the air.
Sure.
And obviously ISN becomes Westwood One Sports, and then BetMGM basically comes into the fray. And Nick and I have talked a lot about the kind of the infusion recently of gambling partners coming into the sports media landscape. Again, we had a partner for a bit that left California, where I live. They left New York recently. And obviously my state has, very much handcuffs, very iron fist style gambling laws in place when it comes to sports prediction markets and wagering. But David, probably, does it seem though, in your opinion though, that we are perhaps, or that maybe corporations, radio, TV, they're kind of in a way over-indexing gambling at the expense of traditional sports talk, like you guys did an ISN for those 13 years that you were there?
It's a very valid question. It's a question that seems to be answered on their end, right? With what has trickled, what has transpired. Look, that's not my kind of radio. I'm not saying it. There's not an audience for it or a desire for it. Of course there is, and I'm not downplaying it or poo-pooing it. But I think there's room for both. When I tune into radio, this is me personally. I don't want to, and I don't know all the terminology, but I don't want to know, a prop bet. That's not what intrigues me. When I listen to radio, I want to be entertained. I want to be fascinated. I want to be just immersed in what the content is. I want to be getting lost in that and engaging in that. I don't want to be hearing about, making this double parlay. That's not interesting to me. Now, I do know where we are in a society standpoint. You go to any college sports team, doesn't matter what level, most of them are betting and betting on their phones. I recognize that. But I don't think we should go so far in that direction. And that's just my opinion. I definitely think there's room for both, for sure.
So I want to engage the audience and talk about your show, because I was a late night listener. I watched on YouTube a lot.
And appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And that's a tough slot to be on from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. And you had one of the more engaging audiences, I would say, on the weekends when it came on the network. Can you kind of talk about, one, how tough it is to put together a 4-hour show in that slot, and just talk about the family aspect, which you talk about all the time on your shows, because it does feel like family when listening to your shows.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. That's what it felt like to me too. And that's what radio is. You know, I'm very lucky in that I got afforded an opportunity a few years ago to start hosting overnights. And I never look back because I've been in those shoes. I've worked hours, which are unconventional, but to have that company, to have that group and that community, that's everything. That's what radio is at its core, is unifying a group of people that have sports in common but come together for something even more. And that's friendship, right? That's connection. That's what we're all aspiring to. I don't know how much you guys are familiar with WFAN. I know you're both savants in the industry, but what Steve Summers used to do overnights, I mean, that was appointment listening because you felt instantly connected to that community. And the nice thing about 2 to 6, it's why I was happy with the time slot, was because you clear all the affiliates. So you're the only show in town. There's not, and you guys know, as the landscape is shrinking and as shows unfortunately are, being eradicated, you know, you clear so many more markets because a lot of stations don't have overnight shows. Westwood One, they don't have an overnight show. They got a show from I haven't listened to any of their content.
11 p.m. to 3 a.m. and they repeat from 3 a.m. to 6
And then
a.m.
they repeat. And then they repeat. Now, I'm not going to comment on their programming. That's their business. It's their right
That's
to
fine.
do what they want.
For sure.
But I as a listener, me personally, I want to go live. I want to hear what's the latest. That's the intimacy. That's the magic of talk radio. That's why Infinity and CBS was so special, because you knew you were never getting something on repeat. It was always live. It was always up to date. It was always fresh. It was always organic. And that's why it was a family atmosphere, because we were live 24/7. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, out here on KWFN 97.3, the Padres flagship where I live in San Diego,
Sure.
I could count on the good Sheppard on the weekends. I could count on Amy in the evenings after
Yes.
the Padres were done playing, or I'm getting off work. I work as a public address announcer at a D1 college. I work in minor league hockey. I do a lot of, other media obligations in town here in San Diego, and I could just count on that being on, count on you guys being on. But I guess, Shep, maybe if you have a chance, maybe talk a bit about what got you into the industry. Obviously everyone had, the voice that they grew up with. Mine was Ted Leitner, Padres, SDSU basketball and football for all those years.
Sure.
But what kind of got your motor going to pursue the, sports media and of course getting into broadcasting, or in this case, announcing in general though for sports?
Yeah. So I think that for me, I always loved sports, right? I grew up on the East Coast, watching the Knicks and the Yankees and the Rangers and the Giants. And, I was a kid of the 90s. So Michael Jordan was it. He could fly. Being bald was cool. Who would have thought? Right. So there was magic to the Cowboys and 49ers. There was a pizzazz about it, Neon Dion, prime time. Sports was special, seeing and hearing Bob Costas on NBC. That was magic. And his ability to add to a broadcast and not take away from it because of histrionics or over announcing or overindulging. And I did a show in college. I didn't go to a Syracuse or a Fordham or a Northwestern. I went to a school in Bucknell that had no sports talk radio chops, and so the opening was there for me from day one. And I just was able to say things, and when you say things and people respond to it and value what you have to say, that's everything. That's everything. When you have a voice, when what you say matters, no matter how big that audience is. San Diego is an unbelievable market in sports. And Ben Woods, am I getting that right?
Ben Woods is still on the morning here.
Right.
Yes.
And then and Tony Gwynn Jr., he does a show.
Yep. Tony Gwynn Jr. and Chris Sello were on from 2 to 6 our time.
Yeah, like that. I mean, the audience that you guys have as a station, and knowing it's only one team, professional team, mind you, But knowing how much the Padres still matter to San Diego, there's magic to that. There's magic to sports. Sports
There is.
is a commonality that is unlike any other. You can have differences of opinions on politics, but sports, man, you bring anyone from any kind of socioeconomic status, it still unites people. And that's the magic of what this is. And to be able to be a facilitator of that for the last 5 years on a national level, that was a privilege that I will never, ever forget, nor not appreciate.
So I want to go back, talk about December, I think it was what, 28th, 29th? 29th was the last day that the network
28th at 11:55 with
55,
Shake
right.
It Up, Scott Farrell. Can't even do the voice. I'm gonna
Right.
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to ask about that relationship because you and Farrell fit in like peanut butter and jelly, kind of in a sense, like in a chemistry where you two could do everything together. Can you talk about kind of that relationship? That show was great, by the way, just hearing you two together again in that form. So talk about that relationship with Farrell, because I think that's important in this scenario.
Yeah, so he's no holds bars. He's the Howard Stern of sports, but I'm not talking about Howard Stern of the 2020s. I'm talking Howard Stern of the 1990s.
Correct. Yeah.
When he was completely unfiltered and he didn't give a damn who he was offending, who he was turning off. He said whatever came to mind. That's Scott Farrell. And I was gonna host. I was designated to host the show by myself, and then I was told by management, "Hey, we want to do something where we bring back Scott Farrell. He was the first show. We want to kind of send him off as the last show." I understood it. Legend. So we co-hosted together, but it was his name was on the show. So there's only so much I could do with interrupting, trying to get my word in, because you can't with him. It's impossible. And that's a testament to how revved up he is and energetic he is and full throttle. But very different types of personalities. And it works because Scott, while he's high character, he'll offend anyone, and he doesn't care who he offends. Where I look at Sports Talk Radio is I'm not looking to offend anybody. I'm really not. I want people to like and respect what we do and be offended by the content, but not necessarily who I am. Scott doesn't care if he offends you based on who he is, and it's why he's a legend and why he's one of one.
That makes total sense. I just want to follow up on one more thing as well. So you've been there for the whole time. You've seen incredible lineups on CBS Sports Radio and Infinity Sports Network. It's incredible talent. Where do you kind of, I don't want to say rank, because I know that kind of went around the last week or so. Trouble for that.
Listen, we're done. I'll answer any question you have openly and honestly. I mean, we're done. We're finished.
How would you look at the talent over the years and kind of assess it compared to other networks in a sense? Because I feel like you guys had some of the biggest names across the 13 years.
Yeah, so I think the individual that had the biggest impact as a host with what he was able to do on multiple mediums within the confines of CBS Sports Radio and Infinity is Damon Amendolara. What he was able to do in getting the visual medium to complement what we do from a radio perspective was brilliant. Scott Farrell is absolutely up there. Cannot deny what Jim Rome meant to the network. Can't deny what Amy Lawrence meant to the network. And hosting full time for over a decade, same time slot in the community that she built. Someone like Jody Mack, the only host that we've ever had from beginning to end. He was instrumental in so much of what we did. JR Sport Brief, the kind of show that he did, which was very unique. It's a very unique listen.
Very different.
Let's be honest about this for a second. We need more diversity in this industry. And to have his perspective was immeasurable. The guy is brilliant to begin with. But I remember when we had the George Floyd incident, and however you feel about it, it's obviously a very heavy topic, and I recognize that, but I remember him going on the air and talking about it. And at the time, I don't know if this has changed, But at the time, he was the only African-American solo national weekday host in the country in the 2020s.
I think you might be right.
You might be right.
And that was powerful. What Bart was able to do in his, couple years in the nighttime slot. We've had some, Brian Jones is all going all the way back. John Feinstein, arguably the greatest American sports writer we've ever seen. R.I.P. to him, by the way. We've had some, and guys, Nick Wright was on CBS Sports Radio. Danny Parkins was on CBS Sports Radio. Pat McAfee was on CBS Sports Radio. Doug Gottlieb. We've had the biggest names in the industry on our network. Ken Carman, Andrew Filipponi. There's been some very, very big shoes to fill with what Infinity Sports Network has put out over 13 years. Let's put it that way.
David Sheppard, again, folks, you might remember the good Sheppard used to be on ISN, which of course has now become Westwood One, joins us on Press Row for our first show of 2026. Shep, where probably do you think you would see where do you see the industry now going? Because I think we have seen it now with the influx of like the YouTube simulcast.
Sure.
The demand for social media content. Nick has done a tremendous job with every show on our network has their own platforms for clips, content, further adding on to the conversation.
Yeah.
But I guess as we enter this new digital medium now where radio is no longer just confined to radio again, now you've got video podcasts behind paywalls on Netflix. You've got the YouTube simulcast now for programs. Where, though, maybe next 5 years do you see the radio industry? Does it go more like how we are here with like audio format content with video content, or is it just going to continue to go the way that it's probably progressing right now? But what do you think?
We need, and a lot of executives are already doing this. We need executives to continue to take leaps of faith in what the core of radio should be. I was talking to Spike Eskin about this, and I've been putting up a lot of YouTube interviews that I've done over the past couple weeks. And I've been Spike's I'm going to do very shortly. And radio is still the most talented medium out there, whether it's streaming, podcasting, television. And that's not to say that there's not amazing all-time great podcasters and YouTubers and television hosts and et cetera, but radio, what you guys are doing right now, what we're doing right now, there's no script in front of us. There's no copy that we're reading from. And if you are, you're doing a very good job of hiding it, right? So there's a lot of radio's all talent. You're not relying on a shot sheet or a script. It's not manufactured. You're just speaking from the heart, from the brain, and you're just going with what you have innately. That's why radio to me is the most talented medium. We have to invest in that. Now, use the other technological mediums and devices to bring people to radio, but we can't shy away from it. And with Infinity Sports Network, and this amazes me, you guys mentioned it, the talent that is not working right now as of January 7th, 2026 is mind-boggling. Look at how many talented people there are out there. Now, I'm not saying I have a huge following, but I do have over 12,000 people that follow me, that follow me on one social media platform alone. I put something out there, within half an hour, thousands of people will see it. That's true for 10, 15 other people. There has to be a vision in our industry for how to tap into that. And I'm blown away that there hasn't been someone out there that has seen all the talent that's been let go to no fault of their own and hasn't done something or thought of something to make that matter and keep that momentum going.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
But I guess one from me. So you've seen the industry change in 13 years, being there from, we didn't have social media at the way it was now.
Sure.
We didn't have direct contact with everybody on air. What would you tell somebody now coming out of college on how to approach this industry? Because it's no longer
network.
It's
network.
Exactly.
Meet as many people as humanly possible. This is a relationship business, and it is not. There's always going to be a Bob Costas. There's always going to be a Dan Patrick, who are just immensely talented and undeniable. But so many people get their opportunities and get looks because of friendships, connections, and relationships. Network with as many people as humanly possible. Keep in touch organically, and then allow the career to take care of itself.
That's an interesting way of putting it. And I saw you put a message on social media that you're going to be doing your YouTube channel and putting stuff up there. Is the plan to continue to do like what you're doing or what you did on ISN with the show, interviews, other stuff? Because we'll talk about for the last couple of minutes just that you're on Sirius XM NBA Radio, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what's kind of the plan there with the YouTube channel?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So every day I want to be putting out something. Every day I just want to be putting out something that's relevant. You may see some throwback interviews, you may see something, but I want to make sure that what we built at CBS Sports Radio / Infinity Sports Network doesn't dissipate and it doesn't die, because I'm very proud of what we did, and I don't want that to go all for naught. So I would encourage any host, based off what we have done over the last 13 years, seize this opportunity. Strike while the iron's hot. We still got people that are interested in what we have to say. 5 years from now, we don't do anything. That may change. So, and I'm very lucky that I'm very fortunate to be with Sirius XM NBA Radio, and I look forward to doing a lot of shows with them in this upcoming year. So I'm excited about that. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have the right people that believe enough in me over there, that were able to see me for who I am and renew my contract. And, but I miss the network, man. It's still, I told you guys at the beginning of this interview, it still doesn't feel real. I've never seen anything like this. For whether it's right or wrong, I'll let people be the judge of what happened, but we had one of the most successful networks, stations in the history of the medium, sports talk radio. Merger finance happens that is way above my pay grade. The details, if we went into it for the next 20 minutes, would be boring, but there was a clear merger. Not one of those shows was brought over.
Right.
It's equivalent to a team getting taken over by new ownership, but the team itself was producing. They were playoff contenders every year, and they were selling out every year in terms of gate tickets. Everyone was showing up, butts were in the seats. They were built. There were wait lists to get into the arena. These weren't half-packed arenas, and every player was dismissed. Every player was cast aside. I wish Westwood One nothing but the best. If they win, we all win. Bruce Gilbert is a really good human being and has a great mind for all of this. So I wish him nothing but the best as well. I don't understand still what happened and why.
I just want to clarify one thing, because I heard you say it on air and I heard Zach say it on his show.
Yeah.
Too. Was there conversations? Like, I know Zach, there was a rumor, and we're going to talk to Zach because I think we're going to have him on next week. But
yes. Zach, Zach and I have an interesting dynamic.
Okay.
It's interesting how personalities clash in this industry. And we didn't get the best out of each other. And that's a regret that I have. There's things I could have done differently. I have nothing but respect for him. He's very talented, but I wish him and I would have been better teammates.
I think you guys as a whole, as a network, did an incredible job going from show to show. I think that's what made you guys jive. Like, I'll tell you honestly, like, I was an ESPN radio listener for many years. And once I started to, like, when I pick up on your show and I pick up on all the shows during the week, I said, I actually like the family dynamic of CBS Sports Radio and Infinity better than ESPN Radio. ESPN Radio felt corporate to me a little bit. I feel like you guys tried to get the listener into the show to be involved. Hey,
they were. They were. Nick, is a great point. They were a huge part of the show. Like Gilberto in San Diego. Do you guys hear him all the time? Like, he was a huge part of the show. Alex in Miami, Glenn in Niagara Falls, Beck in Florida, Marshall in Milwaukee, Johnny in Atlanta, Josh in Seattle. Like, I learned this from Howard Stern. People want different personalities.
Yes.
They want different perspectives. It's not all about one person. And what I will say, in credit to Zach, because I did hear him mention this on his show as well, I don't understand how he's not there at Westwood. He was very clear about, he was told that he was getting an opportunity there. The guy has done a great job building content and repurposing that and redistributing that on multiple platforms and making headlines. I'm honored to have been Zach's teammate and colleague. I just wish we got along better. But I'm sure I had a lot to do with that. Just strong fellas, you know how it is. Strong personalities. We're both very strong personalities, and but he did it. But I was honored to be his teammate, and I look forward to what he does next. And he's gonna be a great asset wherever he lands. That's for sure.
The final one for me, and I'm not looking to push when I keep asking this, but how close was the conversation? Because I heard you say on air, like you said, you had a conversation with Bruce about possibly doing a show, maybe even on the weekends. Was that ever a possibility, or was that not really?
Yeah. I can't speak for Bruce. My takeaway when I spoke to him was I had a good shot at a full-time weekday slot because of what I was able to do on every Saturday and Sunday, get the kind of numbers that I got. I was successful at Sirius XM NBA Radio, brought that element to the table. And I thought I had a really good shot at getting full-time. Maybe really good's a strong word. I thought I was absolutely being considered. And there was genuine interest on his part in terms of me being a finalist for a full-time role. Now, that didn't happen. And then to not get anything was surprising, because that's not how our conversations went. That's not the tone of it. That wasn't the interest level that I got from Bruce. But there are a lot of decision makers outside of Bruce.
Right.
Again, it's obviously disappointing, but that's the reality. They had every right to do whatever they wanted in terms of who they hired. And I wish them the best. The thing that hurts me about all of this is the audience that I don't get to continue to connect with every single weekend. And sometimes I would host 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah, because you got the fill-ins for JR sometimes, and for
JR. I was JR's main guy. I was Bart's main person. I was Amy Lawrence's main fill-in as well. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't understand it, and that's not, and at the end of the day, that's not what matters. What matters is they wanted to go in a direction that wasn't the direction of choosing me, and many others at Infinity Sports Network. There was not a single show that was retained, and I look forward to what we all do next from here. And in the same breath, I do wish Westwood One the very best, because those are first time hosts, all of them, nationally, with the exception of Jim Rome. And I know that if I were in that position and I got a life-changing opportunity, which I did at CBS Sports Radio, I would want people in the industry to root for my success. I wouldn't want them to be haters. So I carry that same sentiment with them. And I don't know what the future is with Westwood One, but I wish them the best. I know they're getting an incredible incredible audience. That's for sure.
And the final thing we'll finish, just to promote your spot where you are on Sirius XM NBA, you're doing post-game shows, right? Is that what you're doing?
You're good. Yeah. So we're. My understanding is that we're going to be doing some post-game shows in 2026, and I'm going to be a major part of that. And I look forward to continuing to grow at Sirius XM NBA Radio. And when Frank Isola retires in 40 years, when they're or Justin Termine in 50. Or Rob Perez in 50 when the next full-time gig arises, that I'll be able to land one of those spots. So you gotta hope for the best, and you gotta aim for the best, and you have to. You guys have seen this with McAfee and Rome, young Jim Rome. You gotta call your shots, and you gotta work for those shots every single day.
Oh, I remember the very young Jim Rome days when he was on Extra 690 in San Diego, and that was a murderer's row here in Southern California.
Yes, and it's funny because we talk about relationships. The relationships he's had in his career, he's great to begin with, but that has also been a huge difference in the jobs that he's been able to get. It's the relationships, it's the networking. He's Jim Rome, but talent and fame and reputation only takes you so far. You got to have people that want to put you in those spots, that want to be your boss. And he's done a really good job of that. It's amazing what he's been able to do and how he's still going strong, by the way.
Yeah, crazy. It's crazy. And I did hear you doing one or two fill-ins on Mad Dog on the weekends. I thought I heard you doing that.
Yes. And I plan on doing more of those. I got more time. But you gentlemen know how this industry is. Look, you're going to get knocked down. We all got, not you too, but we as a network, we all got knocked down immensely and monumentally. But the fun part is, how do we rise? How do we bounce back? And how do we take what we did and ultimately become better in the long run for it? And that's the goal. And Zach, going back to Zach Gell for a second, I really do mean this, man. Nobody generated more headlines in our network than he did. Deserves a lot of credit for that. And I'm baffled that let me put it this way. Wherever he goes next, whatever organization, affiliate, radio company that may be, whatever station it may be, they're going to get one of the hardest working people in this industry.
No, I agree. He's an incredible host, unique in a lot of ways, and I hope all you guys do well from this, because again, it's not easy when a network closes or changes or evolves. And
how long have you guys have been in the industry? It's not a cup of coffee for you either.
No, 18 years.
Have you seen anything like this before, where a successful network just all goes awry?
Probably for me, it was when Extra 690 folded operation. They tried it with 1090, and it worked for about 10 years. And then John Lynch was losing money, and then it broke off, and then they shut that station down, and that murderer's row is gone. Scott Kaplan's now on ESPN 710 doing late afternoon drive. And we've got two stations here in San Diego. We got KWFN, where, ISN was, and where WWO is now. And then AM 760 only has local talk from noon till 6 in the evening.
Yeah, I can't think of much. I mean, I know a little bit of Westwood One because I produced a show for Westwood One for a couple years on the political talk side. But I'm more of a sports guy, but that's how I got my foot in the business. But I can't think of anything like this where
a national brand.
Nationally, no, not that I can.
And none of the shows get retained. That's
the part.
Not one show, not one weekend show, not one weekday show, not one.
Now, I remember hearing the news in October, 2 months before. How long? Do you know how long this was essentially going on for before that news kind of leaked out through, or no?
I don't know the answer to that. I know Bart. Did you guys see the Bart Winkler send off?
Yes, we did, and we're going to have him on too.
Yeah, and we happened to talk about Jason, we happened to talk about Jason Barrett's, I think, very classless article too on his website about Bart's sign off.
I'm gonna refrain from talking about Barrett. Guys,
That's fine. That's fine.
Don't even get me. Oh man,
That's
don't even
totally
get me started.
fine.
Yeah.
I think you and I agree. Both all of us agree on that. But yes.
Well, let's just call a spade a spade. I'm not gonna comment on what he does for a living.
That's
and
fine.
what that publication is. But let me
Sure.
just say this: when Bart Winkler does his show, and the show is 97% gratitude. Now, as a host, I'm not going to comment on how he signs off. That's his decision. But I do know that 97% of it was full of respect for the audience, respect for his bosses,
Positivity.
and gratitude for the opportunity. And that wasn't brought up.
Correct.
So what is Jason trying to accomplish? Like, is he writing an article to stage someone that he doesn't have necessarily a great relationship with? And would he do that if it was someone who attended his summits, or someone that had previously wrote for him, or someone that he had on his podcast? I don't think he would have done that.
Fair.
That was not fair what he did.
Correct.
At all. Bart's show was about thanking the audience, thanking management, thanking Infinity. And yeah, it's not up to me to say whether or not he should have commented on the tone of that meeting in October, but that's how he chose to sign off. Now, if Jason wants to include that, that's his business.
Correct.
He said it for the public dissemination in airwaves, fair game.
Yes.
But where's the article about the connections that Bart made with his audience? Where's the article about, in the 2 short years Bart was at Infinity, the kind of companionship that he would provide so many people, driving 12 hours on end? Where was that article? And that's disappointing. Listen, I've been a national host for 5 years. Barrett's never written about me, ever, not once. Fine. If they you want to choose who you want to write about based on the relationships you have, that's your business. But if you're gonna write about somebody, be fair-minded about what you're putting out there. And that was a hit job.
Agreed.
Nothing else. That was a hit job. That wasn't honoring what Bart did that night. That wasn't taking into account the emotional rawness of what it means to give up your lifetime gig. And Jason, to his credit, has built this publication that resonates with a lot of people. That particular article was immensely unfair and, quite frankly, inappropriate. So much for not saying anything.
Yeah, could not agree more, though.
We totally get where you're coming from, though, because I think it was last episode, Callan, or 2 weeks ago, we totally just destroyed that article because we felt that was not fair to the industry, not just him, just the industry in general. About, it's your show. You do what you want within the reasons of the rules of the company, but you do what you feel makes sense.
Is Barrett TMZ?
No,
that's what
sure
that's
seems
what
like it
it's
though.
become. Because
yeah.
they write it because they write about the same 10 or 15 people every week.
It's true. You're right. They do.
And they pick and choose who they write about and the kind of coverage they give. I can tell you, personally, they've written articles about people that have gotten weekend shows 1 day a week.
Right.
And they devoted columns to those accomplishments. I got a show I did twice a week.
Yep.
For multiple years on a national level. And I also got a show at Sirius XM NBA Radio doing the post game for the last month of the regular season. Now, why wasn't that written about? Why wasn't that covered? So to me, we're looking at that particular publication as a brand of leadership and fair-minded coverage and professionalism. It's not. It's about writing and covering the people you like and putting out articles about the people you have previous relationships with. It's not about writing about the industry.
No.
Because if it was writing about the industry, when you wrote about Infinity Sports Network, Jody Mack is getting mentioned in that.
Correct.
He wasn't. Who was mentioned in that was people that they're friends with that have probably hosted 5 shows at the Infinity Sports Network.
Correct. And that's the unfortunate part of that platform, and I'll get off the topic. But my point is that you're right. It's very biased leaning. That's the word I would use for Barrett Sports Media, which is the name of his site. But you know what? It is what it is. It's like you said. Try to remain positive and move on to the upper and what you're doing. It's serious.
And Nick, sorry to cut you off, but I think Jason can do amazing things in this industry. I think he has that capability.
Yes.
It's just a shame that particular publication has been all about propping up certain people and ultimately disparaging others, where it should be about covering the industry.
Agreed.
And about promoting the industry, not trying to tear it down like it's a second-rate version of TMZ.
Well, it's funny. When Callan and I talked about the article, I kept saying to Callan, like, why is he injecting his opinion into what's supposed to be a journalistic-ish looking view?
Right, but he wouldn't have done that if it was someone else.
No,
he did that because it was Bart. That can't be where we're going as an industry.
Agreed.
Where we pick and choose who we like, who we don't like, because there is no way you can listen to that final show and say, yeah, Bart was ungrateful, Bart was unruly, Bart was uncooperative, Bart was unprofessional. Not a chance. Not a chance.
I watched that 10 minutes because he put it up on social media. I watched this video more than multiple times. I watched that video multiple times. And it was just an incredible last 10 minutes of the show. So I just feel like let him be. If you don't like it, don't listen. That's what they say they have a dial for, right?
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But David, we appreciate your time, giving us all the time you gave us. And I look forward to listening to you on Sirius XM NBA Radio too. And hope to talk in the future.
Great. Hey guys, honestly, you guys are very good at what you do. Really enjoyed this. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again, Shep. We love you, man.
All right.
Thank you, Brandon.
Keith McPherson, has been on WFAN. He did the 7 to 12 slot for a while, stepped away for a while to be with family and to look at some other opportunities. But you ready to talk to Keith?
Let's do it, baby.
Hi, Keith. How are you?
Yo, what's up, guys? Thanks for giving me an hour of grace. Took a while for me to get home and get some things in place, but I didn't want to cancel. I appreciate you guys reaching out to schedule this. So what's up? How's it going?
Good, man.
Great to see you, man. Thanks for hopping on. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's get into first stepping away from the fan. I saw your stream while you stepped away. You wanted to be more with the family in that sense, right? That was more of kind of stepping away from the full-time gig.
Yeah, I won't even say it like that. I'll say, I'm a first-time father, and when I took the role in 2021, I wasn't a father at all, and doing nights was something that I thought I would be able to do for a long time. I did it for 4 years. I did 2.5 years once my son was born, but it just became too challenging. It created too much chaos in my life, and, every day was a battle between, leaving the house at 5:30 for a 7 p.m. show, and then I'm leaving when my wife and my son are coming home, or the morning if I do a show till 2 and I got to sleep. You might be able to hear my son right on the other side of this room. My son is bigger now. I don't know if you have kids, but when I signed my contract and when I was doing this, I never envisioned my son saying, I want daddy in the morning at, 7 a.m. and I didn't go to sleep till 4 a.m. So it just, there was, a lot of things going on that made it hard to do the time slot. Now, I never had a problem doing the show. And the thing about WFAN is there was no opportunity for me during the day. I was a hired gun, just a straight up radio host, right? I never produced. So it wasn't like they could say, okay, we'll put you on and be a producer. Like some of the guys on WFAN that kind of went through that traditional intern, board op, producer, and then got to the mic. I just came in and they told me to shoot. So with no other opportunity being present for me, in like October, November, I stepped down. And I stepped down before I knew the changes were coming. So what I'll say is I don't regret the decision. It has been great to go to sleep at night and wake up with my wife and my son and put the family first. And what is even greater is the blessing that comes when people know you're a free agent. And I'm not even a free agent. Like I try to tell people in my video, I'm still under contract for some time, and I'll be back to do some fill-in spots like I just did. But man, the amount of people that reached out to say, hey, what's going on? Can we, bring you in? Or, what are you doing next? Or how can we work with you? I'm like, wow, you do 4 years of radio in New York City at a place like WFAN. There's a lot of people that hear you and respect you. And, I have no doubts about where I'm going next or where I'm going to land. I'd like to stay a part of the WFAN family forever. But, those seats are tough. Those seats are tough. Boomer and Gio been up there in the morning for 19 years. Shout out to BT and Sal, who actually did get let go. And they thought they were going to be doing that for 10, 15 years. Evan and Tiki, who, their show came together, and Tiki was a 10-year partner with BT. And now they're doing the midday. And here Craig Carton comes back for a third stint. And Chris McMonagle, who's been in there 18 years, doing every single thing possible and was really killing it in the overnight. Now he gets the afternoon drive. Like, maybe that's the lineup for, and then let me not forget Tommy Lugauer, who's doing, my time slot with the after hours. Maybe that's the lineup for the next 5 to 10 years.
Keith, I'm very glad you brought, though, about the personal grind. Nick lived through it. I lived through it. At one point, I literally went to college and worked as a producer, disc jockey for 2 years. Nick worked at WABC for a long time. And I'm glad you brought the personal pivot, though, Keith, because I live in San Diego. We just had one of our afternoon drive guys, Jim Russell, move to Philadelphia from KGB AM 760, which was an iHeart media station, because his family is, his wife's family is there, and his wife miscarried, and they were obviously shattered. So I totally understand the pivot, though. As you're saying, you have a young son now, or a son, and at the time when you signed the contract, though. But I guess, though, Keith, how difficult was it maybe to step away from that full-time role in, an industry that is such a, a grind 5 days a week, though, filling those time slots as you were?
It was not something I was willing to do, and I champed it out for 2.5 years, not sleeping, getting up mornings to help my wife and help, change my son's diaper or help get them out the door, or nights I would cut it really close with New York traffic where, I'd be on at 7 o'clock. Sometimes I'm not walking into the building until 6:45, cutting it that close because I stayed at home. It's tough. No one wants to give up a solo New York radio show. And I remember that's one of the first things I said to my bosses. I looked them all in the eyes and said, I don't want to give up my show. But to sacrifice your at-home life and your family situation is tough. And it just kind of got to the crossroads where, all things considered and the sum of all things, I'm like, this is what needs to happen for us to move forward. And like I said, I made that decision and I made that announcement on my own social channels, and the amount of people that reached out to me, I was like, okay, this was destiny. This is what God, wanted for me. This is the universe never unconnects. Like this was always my path, right? Shout out to Steve Summers, who did the nights for so long. I talked to him recently in the building, and I was like, man, I'm sleeping again. I'm like, just the first couple of weeks, I was having headaches, and I was having a tough time adjusting, to a regular sleep schedule. I'm like, did you ever deal with that? He's like, no. He's like, I don't sleep regular now. I'm like, it's crazy to think about radio, because radio is on all the time. And in a place like New York, the city that never sleeps, specifically WFAN, we keep a host on through the night, into the morning, the wee hours. You can call that radio station and talk to somebody at any time. It's not like that across the country. It's automated across the country. There are national shows across the country. Not the case in New York, but it's hard to find the people with the talent, with the know-how, and the schedule that can make that work. And I just grew into a person that could no longer do nighttime radio for the sake of my family. And I think that was how it was always supposed to end.
I'm curious because I saw your final video, and I see a lot of people have speculation about what happened, of whether you were fired, which we all know you weren't. I knew you weren't.
I would say it. I don't know. You guys know how the internet is. Yeah, the lie is always better than the truth if it's salacious, if it's scandalous. But I'm like, I try to be so honest and transparent. I'm like, listen, if I was fired, I would come out and I would put a video out and say, hey, I was let go today.
It's wild how people speculate about like your situation and what people were saying in those comments. I was watching that video and I was like, holy cow, these people don't understand how this industry works. Sometimes.
Right. That too.
They do.
Like,
think they do.
What did I do to get fired?
Exactly. I'm like, wait a minute.
I've been a good soldier these last 4 years.
And also, like, who's pushing me out? And all respect to Tommy Lugauer, who is now doing my spot. There was never any conversation about pushing me out for Tommy because Tommy was with Evan and Tiki. So, yeah, no, it just, I don't know. People rather, and I thought that was kind of weird too, was right around Thanksgiving and the holidays. I'm like, you people rather come up with that I was kicked to the curb, fired before the holidays. Like, WFAN wouldn't do that to me. I've sacrificed too much time and energy and put, so much sweat equity into that brand and that station. They weren't kicking me to the curb the week of Thanksgiving.
No. The other question I want to ask too is 5 hours is a long time on any station, regardless of New York or any station around the country. Can you kind of tell the audience like what it's like putting together a 5-hour show and sometimes not knowing exactly when you're going to be on because you're on in that slot where games are on constantly?
The first thing is you've got to change your mentality. And, when Steve Summers did it, they called it the marathon. And I remember them telling me, hey, we're going to wait your first show. We're going to give you the marathon. And so I went in saying, keep McPherson here for the 5-hour marathon. And I had a friend, shout out to Andrew Levy, who was like, you're not a marathon runner, you're a sprinter. And he's like, make it, make it not seem so grueling. And so I started calling it a 5-hour sprint. So my mentality was, we're going to run through the tape. We're going to run through every hour. And then even when I would do my show, I'd count down the hours. I'd be like, inside the 10 o'clock hour. And, I kind of cue up the 11 o'clock hour. And the 11 o'clock hour, open mic time. Whatever you guys want to talk about that we haven't talked about, we'll hit in the last hour. So it's like, it's basically structuring. Like that first hour, I never took any guests in that first hour. 7 o'clock, I'm just going to come out of the gate firing. John Harbaugh, he's out here. The Giants got to go get him. If he wants Joe Shane out of there, he gets to say that. Like you come out with your hot takes and your thoughts and you get right to it for 15 to 20 minutes of the open. You go to break. Then you come back and there should be a full rack of calls if you did your job right. And you start to talk to the people. And then you take another break. And then when you come back, there's the last minutes of the hour, which is probably like 7:40 to 7:54. And you can kind of start to tease what you're going to do the rest of the show, the 8 o'clock hour. Then sometimes I would schedule guests. I would always schedule my guests on about 10 minutes to a quarter after the hour. So, maybe in my open, I'll say, at 8:15, we've got Pat Leonard from the New York Giants. At 9:15, we've got John Heyman from the New York Post. At 10:15, we've got Antoine Staley from the New York Daily News to talk Giants, Mets, and Jets. And so like that way I kind of had that in my mind too, that like, okay, if we hit the Giants in the first hour, we'll talk to that reporter. But when we're done with that, we're done with that. When I come back, we're going to talk Jets and then, or we're going to talk Mets and then we'll talk to that reporter about it. And then we're done with that. And then we come back, we'll talk Jets. And like, it's about being prepared to talk about all of the different teams with the topics of the day and the news stories, but then also being able to interview someone and have a couple questions lined up and some off the cuff things to ask the person that you're interviewing. That's the expert on the teams. And then when you spoke about there being games on, that might be while the Knicks are on. And you say, hey, we're going to do a ride along. I'll keep you updated on the Knicks score and what's going on. Jalen Brunson just left the game in the third quarter with an ankle injury, but the Knicks are up right now 88-75. We'll get back to the calls at 888-808-1019, and I'll keep you posted on that.
Got it.
Yeah, Keith, more importantly, I think nowadays, and this was something, though, that they tried on MLB Network, obviously, but also your time at John Boy Media that kind of led, though, to perhaps the role with MLB Network at one point with the Off Base show. Before I talk about MLB Network, though, Keith, let's talk about John Boy Media. Obviously, they're great. The content there is great. All of the different, angles that they come, at the sports world for, the breakdowns, the bad lip reading, whatever. Keith, though, what do you believe that legacy radio or TV executives still don't quite understand about this is how the younger demographic of sports fans consumes their content, is not with, a radio or TV, but via a smartphone or a tablet scrolling through social media nowadays, as you probably know very well from your time at John Boy?
Oh, yeah. What I'll say that John Boy knew, and some of these radio stations are still trying to figure out, and linear television stations. Like I worked at MTV and I ended up leaving there because they didn't get it. You know, I remember telling them at MTV they wanted to bring back TRL. And my phrase that I used was, you know, these kids aren't running home to watch TV. They've got the TV in their pocket. They can turn the TV on at any time. Yeah. So what John Boy did was attack that TV in your pocket, flood the internet with content. His YouTube channel, there was something going live every couple hours. And he created this whole John Boy universe where they rented out a warehouse and did the warehouse games. You know, they were doing trivia. They watched old game shows, old baseball games. Of course they did Talkin' Yankee baseball podcast, but there's 100 of those. Of course they did Talkin' baseball podcast, but there's 1,000 of those. They also were there early. Like they've been doing podcasts since 2017. A lot of people are just getting hip to the game now. And not only were they doing podcast, there was a vodcast. Like there's a video to go along with it, not just audio only. I don't think they did much audio only. They were smart video. And I specifically worked with John Boy during the pandemic where you literally had a captive audience. There were no games going on. There was nowhere to go. You couldn't go to the movies or a concert. People were stuck at home. And what I always tell people about John Boy, whether he meant to do it or not, the first office that we had was at 930 Grand Concourse, right up the street from Yankee Stadium, and it was in a residential apartment building. So when the pandemic closed all the commercial buildings, you can't close a residence where people are coming in and out that live. So we were allowed to come in and out of that place. And even though I didn't go in as much, and some of the other employees didn't go that much, John Boy, Jake, and a couple of those other guys, they went in there every day and did their thing. And so they were able to grow during the pandemic that when things got back up and running, I mean, they were strong, and look at them now, you know. So, you know, props to John Boy and Jake for taking social media and what I was calling fan-made media and kind of forcing their way into traditional media.
So then I guess that leads me to my other part of my two-pronged question, though, Keith. Then you get asked to come on to MLB Network during the course of the past couple seasons. They ran off base in like the noon to 1 o'clock Pacific time slot leading into MLB Now with Brian Kenny, then eventually Attentional Talk with Millar and all of them. And that kind of attacked baseball from a new avenue in a way with you and LG. God bless her soul. I know that her and her husband, of course, had lost their young child over the course of a summer. And then you had the player perspective with Xavier and maybe like a Anthony Decker, for example, or a Jake Peavy, one of my favorite parties of all time. And then like the other big name writer like Hannah Kaiser for a long time. Keith, what probably in your mind, though, did you guys try to accomplish an off base, but also do you think they'll let your program, which I know got relegated to a podcast now on Sundays with X and LG, But with what the show tried to encapsulate, though, like kind of like the fashion of the game and the guys kind of showing their personalities a bit more. I know that you guys were very big, as I am because of my organization in San Diego, about the guys pimping the home runs and having fun with the game and stuff. But do you believe, though, that the off-base era that you guys had helped baseball media kind of loosen like the tradition purist or the gatekeeping tendencies around Major League Baseball when it comes to how the game should be covered?
Yeah, I mean, it was called off base because it's supposed to be off the baseball conversations that were had all day, every day on the platform. We weren't supposed to spend too much time talking about metrics, talking about BABIP and xWOBA and, things like that.
I don't mean to cut you off, Keith, but I'm just going to throw a disclaimer. I despise Brian Kenny for how he treated Joe Musgrove in the 22 wild card round versus the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
I've never liked the guy ever since, but please continue.
BK, I didn't have too many interactions with BK, but BK is BK, and that's the thing about baseball. There's a lot of really smart baseball people that do kind of gatekeep and act like, hey, if you don't talk baseball at this level, you're not at our level. Okay, that's fine. Not all of us want to be. Like, when you broke down the people that were in there, Xavier Scruggs is there because he's a former player. He can share that experience. LG is a trained television professional that is going to bring us in and out of the commercials and give us that credibility. Hannah Kaiser is a writer, and she's super smart. Like, she knows history. She knows ins and outs of what's going on right there. And then here comes Keith McPherson, a radio host who is on the Fan, talking to fans, and is a fan himself. When he leaves this set, he's going to drive to Yankee Stadium and sit in the middle of the bleachers. So that combination was to give people a different perspective. And we were going to talk about what the guys are wearing, what walk-up songs they're playing, what they're posting on their social media, what they like to eat, what ballpark food is being featured, what are fans doing in the stands? Are they doing a snake cup in Wrigley in the bleachers? Like, just things that were going on in baseball to show people, like, baseball is fun, baseball is cool, this stuff's popping on social media. Let's put it on your TV screen so you could see it and hear some people laugh about it, talk about it, and have some different segments about it as well.
One more before I give Nick the floor back about MLB Network, Keith. Do you have a good Sarah Lang story by chance?
Oh, I love Sarah Lang. So I actually was the first person, and it hurt to find out about her condition, but I was the first person to wish her well and shout her out on Off Base on MLB Network. It's just because, like, when that news broke, I think it was the day we were going on, maybe right before we got on, and it wasn't in the program, but I looked straight in the camera and shouted her out. She is, man, she's so smart, and she's such a baseball fan, but, like, such a professional in her research and how she goes about things. And now you're seeing the warrior spirit that she has, how she's fighting this battle. It hurts my heart to even talk about her. When I do see her, I haven't seen her in a long time, but when I do see her, like, I do want to go up to her and just try and give her some strength. But, you know, God picks battles for certain soldiers. And because of who she was before this and built up to, and now she's carrying it, this was her journey and something that was meant for her to kind of, shed more light on. And I pray for her, and I hope she lives a long time, and I hope she fights this and battles this, because she's someone that is becoming an icon in baseball. And I just wish her the best. And when we found out that news, I was the first person to look in the camera and say, shout out to her, and keep doing your thing, and you're in our prayers, and we all got you.
So I want to go back because I saw you make the face for Heyman when you mentioned him before. I kind of want to know more about that interview that happened on the Fan. So I saw that reaction. I saw the mock of the arson judge situation. And was there anything else that we don't know about that situation?
Yeah.
What happened? Or was it just like a natural situation happening?
So John, I think the only time I ever saw John, I think I saw him twice at MLB Network. One, John was aware of me at MLB Network. How could he not be? Him and Joel Sherman are both on shows there and, like, walk around the hallways in the cafeteria. And I think I first saw John Heyman there. The second time I think I saw John Heyman was in the Yankee media area, where I don't go too often, because as we talk about people in their baseball level, that's where all the writers are. That's where you can find Joel Sherman. That's where you can find Passan. That's where you can find Brian Hoke. That's where you can find Chris Kirshner, all the Yankee beat writers and even the national writers, whatever. And I got no problems with any of them. I had no problem with John, but I am a child of the internet. I did all of this through social media. As far as getting noticed and being seen, I built my Twitter, I built my Instagram, I built my YouTube, TikTok, all of that on my own. That's how I got on. There's no nepotism. There's no, I like literally got on because I quit my corporate social media job and started building my brand. So I say that to say this. The day that John came on with me, I didn't book him. I didn't have his phone number to book him. But we had kind of known each other. And so my producer, Connor Green, I remember I went home to visit my mom, and I live in Monmouth County, or I live in Hoboken, but I had to go down to Monmouth County, and then I just didn't have time. And I'm like, listen, bro, I need, 3 guests. And Pat Leonard was my first guest, or one of my guests, but John Heyman was my first guest. And I remember listening to John Heyman with Michael Kay. He also did a Bleacher Report live, and and I was like, yo, everybody's asking him the same things about Juan Soto. And so I was like, I'm going to joke with him and try to break the ice and have fun on a Friday night and take the internet approach.
Yeah.
The internet approach is like always talking about his relationship with Scott Boras and how he's getting a cut from Scott Boras and how he works for Scott Boras. And so I did not realize, one, that was the anniversary of the arson judge tweet. I had no idea. And so when I brought that up, I was like, yo, like, I'm like, I'm trying to coach him up and be like, you got to shrug that off, man. Like, yo, you've been doing this for so long. Everybody in baseball knows you, but he's got a sore spot, a sensitive subject for him, and I did not know that. So
he's known to blocking people on Twitter.
And I didn't know that either because I was following him. He was following me back. He even gave me a big shout out to be like, yo, I'm going on WFAN with Keith McPherson. So, hey, I didn't know right there. That was one grenade. But then the way that I approached the Soto thing, we all knew around where Soto's contract was going to be. We knew the teams that were in on him. We knew how many years and AAV. And so I was just like, yo, dude, I'm like, as much as you're writing and covering about Soto, like if you get 10% of that contract, like that's like a year's salary. Like, yo, and so I am very lighthearted. I don't take myself that serious. My show comes on Friday night. It's 8:00 at night. It's the end of the week. Everybody's been on Soto watch. I'm thinking that he'll get a laugh out of it. 8-9 minutes into it, he starts to get hot and he says something about like, this is a disaster. I won't be doing this again. And I don't care, but I'm trying to be professional and say, oh, no problem. Like, I don't need you to come on my show. Nobody needs you to come on the show, bro. Like, a guy being on a level, right? And then I started to understand. He was like, you're not a journalist. You don't understand how any of this works. Like, and then he started freaking out. And it blew up into this thing that went viral. And what I'll say is, I didn't even understand at the time. Like, I didn't even understand how big it was going to be. But the CEO of Odyssey saw me at the Christmas party, and she said that out of all of the constant Juan Soto talk, that was the thing that went viral, and it spiked their social engagement. It spiked the meters where people were turning on the radio, people were going in the app and going back to it, and it is a forever moment that like is attached to me that I wasn't really trying to manufacture. And like so many people did think pieces on it and said I was disrespectful and a hack or whatever. I was like, please, man. I'm like, I would apologize to John, and that's what happened after. I tried to get his phone number. He didn't want me to call him, so like we did all his back channeling. He talked to my boss. He talked to my producer. And then to end it, and this is where I end it because I just laugh about it now, I run into him at spring training in the media area at the Yankees facility. And I literally put my hand up like, hey, John. And he looks at me and he dips the other way. And I felt like I was the bully in high school that like ends up in the hallway with the nerd, and the nerd sees you and runs away. And it made me feel, at that point, it made me feel bad because I'm half his age. And I'm like, I don't want to be this. Like, that wasn't my intent, dude. I have respect for your career and who you are and what you've done. And I thank you for coming on my show. And I'm sorry that you blew up that night and that turned into that. Because he even went online and made it worse. Somebody asked him if he dropped any N-bombs, and he said yes, but I guess he thought like it said F-bombs. Like there's this whole thread that popped up. And I'm like, John, go to sleep. Get off of Twitter. It doesn't help. But hey, it helped me. My followers went up that night. That's a forever moment on the radio. And that's something that I was able to play off of. And I did not know. I did not wake up that day or even put my show together that day thinking that was going to happen.
Wow.
Damn.
That's a great story.
So thanks, John. Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for blowing up. And like, I think it was born out of not having respect for me as a young radio host who's not a journalist, didn't try to be. I went to school for communication, radio, and television. Like, the journalism spot was right there. I didn't care for that. But like, because these guys have been doing this for so long, and there's this new age of new media, like John Boy and those guys, a guy like me who literally made his name just from tweeting and going to the stadium, they don't respect us. So I think that was born out of, I don't respect you. I'm on your radio show. I don't have to be doing this. How dare you disrespect me? When I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, I was being lighthearted. It's a joke. It's a joke. Take a joke. Or you take yourself that seriously. He takes himself that seriously. I don't take myself that seriously. People make jokes about me all day. Worse, people say terrible things about me all day, and I just let it slide off my back.
The one thing I just wanted to follow up with, obviously you were at John Boy doing digital and social, then you go back. I find it interesting that you went from digital to radio in that regard. How did that come to be? I'm just curious how because I've heard you say before, like you said you met with the executives of Odyssey or FAN. How did you go from John Boy to FAN? Because that's kind of a reverse path in a sense, kind of, right?
No, it actually makes sense because I was at John Boy and I was hired really to do social media digital, and I was doing a lot of that on the back end. But as the company started to grow and we found people that were specifically just digital people that didn't do any on-camera stuff, I started to delegate responsibilities where I knew I was doing the Talkin' Nets podcast. I needed to be more involved there. I was doing Pinstripe Strong with Joe's McFly. I needed to be more involved there. And that honestly started to fracture some of my relationship with Jimmy and Jake because they're like, we hired you to build our stuff and not your stuff. And I'm like, sorry, guys. Like, if my name is on a podcast or a brand, I'm going to put effort into my name's sake, and I'm going to make sure you guys are covered as well. But look at how that led me to WFAN. WFAN airs the Yankees games and the Nets games. And through doing the Talkin' Nets podcast, which was one of the top Nets podcasts, and the Pinstripe Strong podcast, which was out there too, Spike Eskin came in looking for a younger, more diverse digital presence for the next nighttime host, because Steve Summers at the time was 74. Here I come, where I'm already in the space of the two teams that are broadcasted on the station. I didn't do a Giants podcast, but I played college football, so I obviously have football knowledge. And I started to have a little bit of buzz. I did my audition in August, and their social media spiked as far as how many people were tweeting and adding and talking about WFAN that night, and the rest is history. They're like, this is the guy. This is clearly the guy. If we're trying to get more digital, if we're trying to reach these fan bases, if we're trying to get younger, if we're trying to get more diverse, he's a black guy. Here we go. So it all kind of helped itself. Now I think there are people in radio that spent the last 15 to 20 years only doing radio and not taking social media serious, and they're trying to figure out social media now, and they're behind. I was doing it all at the same time.
Interesting. So what do you make of all the YouTube simulcasts? Like I've seen your show on FAN being on YouTube simulcast, all of that, everyone making a big deal of the video simulcast. Now we're going to see a bunch of the sports podcasts going behind the Netflix paywall and all that stuff. What do you make of that? Like the video side,
I love it,
of the podcasting being more of a big deal than it ever was before.
I love it because it's not going to end, and they're going to keep looking for the next guy and the next group and the next podcast, and it should give people this place to shoot for. That hey, you could start in your room doing a video podcast, and the next thing you get a set, and then the next thing you're on Netflix. So I just think what they want is to own these shows and take them off YouTube, where they're seeing these millions of views on YouTube for Part of My Take. No, now we want that. And so who's making the next Part of My Take?
That's interesting. That's an interesting way to think of it. And I guess one of the final ones I'll ask you, what do you make for a college student coming out of school now? Obviously, with the business being way different, because I remember growing up with you have to do all the video editing, you have to know how to do all this stuff. Now it's a lot of self-made, a lot of doing a lot of this stuff. What would you tell somebody who's coming out of college? What's the best way to approach this business?
Yeah, I tell all these kids now, the older guys in this business they're trying to glue themselves to these chairs. And you younger guys trying to get in the business that want so badly to work at WFAN or ESPN Radio or Sirius XM or wherever, Fox, NBC, traditional media is looking to new media for their next stars. So if you're good enough, they will come find you. Put yourself out there. There are no gatekeepers on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. So build your podcast, build your channel, put out your takes, build your brand, put out your content. And if it gets good enough, big enough, they're gonna come get you. That's it. It's that. And get little jobs that you can get. But still, when you get out of school, there's no reason for you to stop getting reps. There's no reason for you to stop adding to your reel, your portfolio, because you can set up a camera in your house and broadcast to whoever is in your audience. And I was just live last night, and some guy jumped in my chat and he goes, "Oh, huge audience here on YouTube. You've got 29 people." I said, I don't care. When I started doing this, I had 0. I had 4. And I've done 4 years of New York City radio that reached hundreds of thousands of people. I would do this whether there was 5 people watching or 500,000.
It's an interesting way. I mean, look at BT with his channel with BT Unleashed. I mean, I look at it the same way.
Rocket ship. And I had no idea that he was planning on doing that or it would take that fast. But I'm impressed and I'm happy for him because BT is 51 with a house and 2 kids. He's got to go after it. And I'm glad to see he's got that support. Me, I don't have to take off on a rocket ship on YouTube. I've got a long career ahead of me. There are multiple people interested in me with built platforms. Like, I'm good.
Well, that's what I was going to. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. So is the plan to be like your own YouTube presence? Are you looking to get back?
But you need one. Like, you should have one. You should own your IP. Like, if all else fails, like, you should still be able to go live in your own apartment. And so, like, I had this built before I knew I was going to leave WFAN. So it was nothing to just turn it back on. But no, and I was saying last night on the stream, just stay tuned. Give me some time. I still want to do shows on WFAN. I've been on TV. I'm going to be back on TV. I'm young in the game. You know, there's guys 30 years older than me in this game. This is not it for me. Please just don't rush me into what you want. Like, I'm still evolving and becoming and growing out here in New York City. I made it in New York. I'm not done making it.
I give you a lot of credit also on the air because I've heard lots of comments come at you during shows. Some good, some not so good, some derogatory, like you were saying before. Tell me how you let that stuff roll off your back, because that's tough in the business doing these shows.
Yeah, it is. You got to get thick-skinned. You got to get callous to it, and I've become immune to it. And it hurts, man. It's hard, especially like when you're black and there's so much racism. And then like it also hurts when you're a good guy. Like, I'm not an asshole. Like I try to give people time. I try to give people runway on air, and then when they hit me with stuff, it's like, it's like so offensive because it's like, hey, I don't know who you are, John in Connecticut. Like, for you to be so abrasive, for you to be so negative and nasty towards me, like I didn't do anything to you. Like, whatever your issue is with me, I don't know you. If you don't like the way I look or the way I sound or the way I said something about your favorite team or whatever, like, you don't have to make it so personal. But it comes with the territory. It comes with it. I've learned so much about sitting in that power chair. You are the blessed one. You are the one that gets the opportunity. You got to wear it. You got to take it, and you got to be above it.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I appreciate everything you've done in the industry. And one, I appreciate you giving us all the time, number one, because you could be doing a lot of things now, including growing stuff for your platform. But Keith, thank you. It's been informative, and hopefully we can talk down the line.
Yeah, I'm glad I could make it, guys. Appreciate it. Talk soon.
All right, man. We'll see you around.